Yes, this is a video response to Caitlin0120, and she's doing a contest right now on her favorite Cary Grant movies, and she asked people to leave a comment or do a video response with their favorite pre-1960s or 1960 before classic movies, or their favorite Cary Grant movies, or their favorite actor or actress from before 1960. What I decided to do was do my favorite movies from before 1960. The first one I want to do, and these are in no particular order, but I want to talk about is Night of the Hunter, and this is the Criterion version of this. It stars Robert Mitchum and Shelley Winters, and I believe it's from 1955. Night of the Hunter is a very disturbing movie as far as if you're used to what you would expect from an older film like this, you would be very surprised to see the subject matter, which is that Robert Mitchum plays like a traveling preacher who is actually kind of more like a predator, and he's going after children. It's very, very disturbing, and it's a shocking movie to see a big name actor like Robert Mitchum playing something that probably led to a lot of what we think of as boogeyman movies today. This is before Psycho, and at that time you didn't see really a lot of Predator-style movies, and the ones you did see sure wasn't the act of attacking children or taking children, which is most disturbing. But as far as movies, like this is one of the best. I like Robert Mitchum, and I like this style of movie. He didn't do a whole lot of movies in this kind of style, but this does stand out in his career as a great movie, Night of the Hunter, 1955. The next movie I'm going to talk about is in a collection. I upgraded to save some space on my shelf, so I'm going to point to just the movie up here in the top hand corner, and that is Freaks. Freaks is from 1932, and it was done by Todd Browning, who also did Dracula. And what you'll notice is that a lot of people that talk about Freaks talk about how it's such a unique movie, and it is true. It is very unique in the fact that a movie like this could not be done today in the way that it was done. A movie like this today would be banned almost immediately as exploiting people with birth defects, people with different kinds of handicaps. But at the time, they used actual people. Today, this would have to be done probably with prosthetics and things like that to keep from looking like they were actually taking advantage of these people. But the story is actually much deeper than that. The most important thing you have to look at is if you watch this movie, you need to watch it all the way through and see that there is a message in there that's the exact opposite of what you'd expect. When a movie, based on the name Freaks, you would expect it to be exploitive, but it's not. What it is actually is a turn on that in which the people that look different are actually the most normal people, and it's actually the people, the pretty people, the most athletic, the people that get the most attention normally as the regular Joes. Those are the people that are actually more evil. It all has to do with the ugliness and the evilness that's in your heart and not on the outside. And so it's a very, very I would say it's not for everybody. It could be very disturbing, but it is a great movie, and it does fall under horror because it does have some elements of violence and stuff towards the end. But yeah, Freaks from 1932. And the last one, before I get into some honorable mentions, that way I can explain why some of my honorable mentions are what they are, is a movie from 1935 that most people that know me know that I love this movie, and it's The Bride of Frankenstein. This is a collection of Frankenstein movies, so this isn't the actual cover of Bride of Frankenstein. But Boris Karloff does return as the monster in this, and this is the sequel to Frankenstein that was just made a few years before then. I think the original Frankenstein was 1931. I believe so. But this came in 35, The Bride of Frankenstein, and Boris Karloff returns as the monster. Colin Clive returns as the Dr. Frankenstein. And the standout performance to me in this movie is Elsa Lanchester as the bride. And probably most notably, a lot of people know Bride of Frankenstein because it's the one that's most used in recurring pop culture, because it's the one where Frankenstein attempts to speak and a few other things like that. And when I mean by Frankenstein, I mean the monster. And that is another perpetuated thing in pop culture, is that this right here is Frankenstein, when actually that's the monster. Frankenstein's the doctor. And a lot of people know that, but it also is so ingrained into our culture that when we think of the word Frankenstein, we think of, Boris Karloff. And Bride of Frankenstein is probably something that helped perpetuate that. And one of the reasons why is because the bride was meant for the monster, yet it's named the Bride of Frankenstein. So a lot of people still feel that Frankenstein is that monster, and then it's even lifted directly out of the title of the movie to make it seem that way. But yes, Boris Karloff is amazing in all his performances as the monster, and Elsa Lanchester has a very small section of the movie. She is the bride towards the end, and you don't really get a reveal until later on. There's a big build up to the reveal of the bride, and that's what makes it amazing. But she does play Mary Shelley at the beginning, also the author. And Bride of Frankenstein is an original, falls right in line with everything that Mary Shelley had written. And in many ways, a lot of people feel like it's a superior movie to the original Frankenstein, which the original Frankenstein is considered one of the best horror movies ever made. So to have a sequel rank right up there with the original is very unique in Hollywood. But yes, if you ever get a chance, you should definitely check out The Bride of Frankenstein, the original. I believe they are going to do a remake this year, and they make remakes ever so many years anyway, but the original is definitely the best. Now, to talk about some other movies that I couldn't put on the list, but I really like to, from 1960, Psycho. I didn't really know if this fell under classics, since you said before 1960, and a lot of people consider Psycho as the edge of what is classic films and modern films in horror. So I would say that probably is a big turning point. This is 21 years after Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind were fairly successful. Gone with the Wind was much more successful at the theaters than Wizard of Oz, but they were both very successful color films from 1939. In Psycho, it was a big leap into horror, and it was still black and white in 1960, and there was a lot of color horror before this came along. So a lot of people say this is the end of the classic era of horror, and a lot of people say this is the beginning of modern era of horror. But Psycho from 1960 is a great movie, Alfred Hitchcock classic. Movie that I've got here, and it's right on the deadline, which is it was a sci-fi classic, is The Time Machine. And The Time Machine is one of those movies that it's based on H.G. Wells' novel, of course, but it was way ahead of its time. It has a lot of unique things in it that are used throughout science fiction. From 1960 on, a lot of the ideas about seeing things go and come, and then also the alternative of what happens to people. But yeah, H.G. Wells did a pretty good book, but I really think that this film is what made this, The Time Machine, really what I think of as The Time Machine today, and that's the 1960 version of The Time Machine. So that's my entry into the contest. I hope everybody enjoyed all those picks that I had there, and that's it. All right, thanks.